Hey everybody, welcome to St Stephen's Online. We hope you enjoy catching up on our talk from Sunday.
We're going to look at the Bible together. So if you've got a real-life Bible, like one of these, or a real-life Bible on your phone, digital version, do have it open. We're going to be looking at Exodus chapter 14. We're sort of looking at the whole chapter, but it was quite long. So I'll give us a little of an update where we're at. So the Passover has happened. Hence, Passover lamb was last week. And God has led the people of Israel out of Egypt and into the desert. And they're heading to the promised land. Back in Egypt, though, Pharaoh has suddenly realized that the Israelites have gone, even though he told them they could go. And suddenly he's thinking, who's going to build my pyramids? Who's going to serve us? And they go into a bit of a blind panic. He talks to all the other officials. They think, oh my goodness, we're going to have to go after these Israelites. They get in their chariots, they gather the army, and they head off in pursuit of the people of Israel. Back in the desert, the people of Israel are wandering through the wilderness. God is with them, and God is constantly present with them as a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. It must have been just a completely extraordinary scene. Tens of thousands of people just moving en masse through the desert with this huge pillar of cloud, the presence of God out at the front leading them. But as I was reading Exodus chapter 14 this week, it occurred to me that depending on where you were in the crowd, depending on your proximity to the presence of God, those people in the crowd would have experienced the Exodus completely differently. We're going to think about that in a moment. Now, a while ago, I think it was actually my first Sunday here, about 19 months ago, I shared how for years I have loved the band Coldplay. And when they announced their world tour back in 2021, I was there on the phone. I managed to get tickets to see them at Hampton Park in Glasgow back in the summer of 2022. And Facebook Memories told me it was today. How extraordinary was that? I did not know that when I was writing the sermon this week. It's amazing as well that they're still on the same tour. Has anybody been to Wembley? I know Loz has. They're doing a few nights. There might be some tickets available. I feel like I need to, rally the troops for Coldplay. And so I was really excited when I went to see them about being in the presence of Coldplay and more specifically, to be completely honest, Chris Martin. Now, the reality though, was that even though we got standing tickets on the pitch in the stadium, because of the volume of people there, Chris Martin was miles away. And so now, imagine the jealousy. Yes, I confess, I've experienced deep jealousy in the last week, when last week my sister-in-law posted this on her Facebook page. It says there at the top, what was proving to be a pretty average day turned out to be rather special. And that is Chris Martin playing his guitar. Because what happened was that they didn't see Chris Martin, the lead singer of Coldplay, in a stadium, but he turned up at the pub that Ruth, my sister-in-law, and my brother were at in Sowerby Bridge in West Yorkshire. And it just happened to be this pub's regular open mic night, and global megastar, beautiful all-round person, Chris Martin, turned up in his van with a piano in it, got his piano out of the car, unloaded it with his guitar as well, and spent an hour and a half playing one Coldplay hit after another and chatting away with the smallish group of people that suddenly got rather bigger over the hour and a half he was there. Because of Ruth's proximity to Chris Martin, her experience of him was completely different from my experience of him a couple of years back in a stadium. Imagine then that you are in this huge crowd of people, of Israelites, being led through the desert by Moses, guided by the presence of God. I wonder where you would imagine you might be in that crowd. Maybe you imagine you'd be out the front. You are where the action is. You have run out of Egypt and you are right there by the side of Moses, chatting away, excited, in close proximity to the presence of God, the cloud, the pillar of cloud. Or maybe you imagine that you'd be in the middle of the crowd, near, but not too close. Sometimes the middle is the easiest place to be, isn't it? Following those who are leading. Or maybe you imagine yourself like the picture there, right at the back of the crowd. Maybe you're sort of lagging behind for some reason. Perhaps you've been struggling to keep up with everybody else. And because you're at the back, God's presence there at the front seems miles away. I expect it was the people at the back, those geographically most distant from the presence of God, who first saw the cloud of dust in the distance coming from behind. It was probably the people at the back that first realized that Pharaoh and the Egyptians were coming after them. I expect it was the people at the back who, not surprisingly, were absolutely terrified at what they could see coming. And it was probably the people at the back that did this massive rant and moan at Moses that we find here in verses 10 and 11 and 12 as well. They cry out to the Lord. They rant at Moses. Why didn't you just leave us in Egypt? Why couldn't we just carry on being slaves to the Egyptians? It'd have been better than dying out here in the desert. The miracles that they've experienced back in Egypt, the fear, the awe, the excitement of the escape from Egypt, in this moment, at the back of the crowd with the Egyptians coming after them, would have felt like a distant memory. And frankly, as much as they know that their time in Egypt wasn't perfect, at least they weren't at risk of a massacre every day. And so they say, let's go back where at least we were safe. And while this is all happening, the pillar of cloud, the presence of God, there to guide them and bring them comfort and protect, is miles in front of them, out of reach. They're at the back feeling at risk and vulnerable and scared. Do you resonate with the experience of those at the back of the crowd at the moment? You're feeling vulnerable or at risk or fearful about something that's going on in your life, and you don't know what the outcome's going to be. Maybe the presence of God feels really distant and far away at the moment. Maybe you've settled in this place at the back. Maybe you've relegated yourself to the back. And you tell yourself, well, this is just where I am. It might not be perfect, but it's fine. Maybe at the back, you're in a place of cynicism. Why would I want to be out the front? I've been there, my time's passed. Frankly, it all just feels a bit risky. It's somebody else's turn. I'm going to sit back and let other people be at the front. Or maybe you found yourself at the back not for any of those reasons, but because, like the Israelites, you're looking back to what was before. And when you're looking back, it's quite tricky to look forward and move forward. And so you get stuck at the back, looking backwards. And into this place at the back, stuck and fearful and distant from the presence of God, Moses speaks some reality to the people of Israel. Look at verses 13 and 14 there. First of all, he says, listen, stand firm. The Lord will fight for you. Stand firm. The Lord will fight for you. Some of us tonight need reminding that the Lord has brought you this far, and he will not abandon you. He will fight for you. Stand firm. He is with you. And then secondly, Moses says, be still. The Lord will fight for you. Be still. But then God puts in his 2 pennies worth. And he has a word for the Israelites too that we find in verse 15. Tell the Israelites to move on. Move on. Be still. Move on. It feels like they're stuck in this sort of backwards and forwards. Am I meant to be still? Am I meant to move on? Where am I meant to be here? What am I supposed to do? But actually, they're not contradictory. One leads to the other. First, be still. This is an instruction to the soul. Be still. Be still, fear. Be still, anxiety. Be still, cynicism. Be still, stress. Be still, apathy. Be still. The psalmist writes, doesn't he, in Psalm 46, be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. Be still. Stop striving. Stop stressing. And know that God's presence is here in the midst of everything and that God will fight for you. And then when you've done that, then we're able to move on. God is saying, look forward, move forward with me, move on. Stop looking back, follow me, follow where I'm leading you. Move forward in my presence towards me as your guide. And so to those at the back, God is saying, be still and then move on. And then look what happens in verse 19. The angel of the Lord and the pillar of cloud, which had been traveling in front of Israel's army, suddenly does something unexpected. This pillar of cloud, it's sort of mind-blowing, this stuff, moves right behind the people at the back, between the armies of Israel and the Egyptian army. To those fearful, resentful people at the back, those people struggling, who are stressed, God comes close. He's present. He's the protector. He is the rescuer. God comes close. So that's the people at the back. But what about the people in the middle of the crowd? If you think about it, most people in a crowd are not at the front or at the back. We're actually in the middle. And it's a good place to be in the middle, isn't it? Any middle children out there? I'm a middle child. We are the best. There we go. It's quite a nice place to be in the middle. The first one can plow on and make all the mistakes, and then the younger one can just be silly behind you, and you just like cruise around in the middle as well. That's my opinion as a middle child. And it's a good place to be. You're protected in the middle. You have people around you. You have people either side of you to talk to about what's happened back in Egypt. You don't have to make too many decisions when you're in the middle, do you? When to stop, when to move, because you can just get carried along with everybody else. Being part of what is happening is what matters when you're in the middle. It's a bit like being on the Mall. I've never actually been on the Mall, but this is what I imagine for what I've been on it, but not for one of the big royal occasions. When there's the masses of people on the Mall. The big thing is you want to be part of the occasion. You want to be part of what's happening. You can just about see the palace in the distance. And frankly, it doesn't matter that you won't be able to see, the king and William and everybody as they come out on the balcony. But that's okay, because you just want to be part of what's happening. That's what matters to you, rather than being in close proximity to the king. And for the Israelites in the middle, God's presence was visible, wasn't it? But not too close. But there's a downside of being in the middle, because sometimes when you're in the middle of a crowd, you can get stuck. Now, if you've ever been in or seen a long-distance running race, maybe the 1,500 meters, or a cycling race like the Tour de France, it's fine to be in the middle of the pack. for some of the time. It helps you to keep pace. If you're struggling, the people behind you keep you going. They provide encouragement. They provide support to get going again if your energy is low. But what you don't want to happen is to get stuck, trapped in the pack, in the peloton, in the middle, so that when you want to break out, it becomes hard for you to move. To those of us who are in the middle, I wonder if we're feeling stuck. And is the Lord saying to us, it's time to move on? In John 8, Jesus tells us, if the Son has set you free, you are free indeed. Some of us in the middle might need to get up, let go of what has been, and move on. Live in the freedom bought for you through Jesus' death and his resurrection. And then tell of that freedom to other people. Don't stay hidden away in the pack. If Jesus is good news, we need to share the good news of Jesus. Don't just stay where you are. There's so much more. Paul instructs us we're to run the race that is set before us. Don't miss out on the race that is set before you. If you're someone who knows that you're in the middle feeling stuck, God may be calling you tonight to move forward, move more into the presence of God. John Wimber started the Vineyard movement back in the sort of 60s and 70s. And he came here to St. Stephen's Church in I think it was 1979, at the invitation of the then vicar, David's dad, Martin. And that visit was one of the catalysts for the renewal of the Church of England that we're still living in today. Anyway, that's a sort of aside, because what I want to tell you is this quote from Wimber. Wimber said this: we don't seek the power of God, but his presence. Everything we need is found in his presence. Sometimes to be in the presence of God, we need to move. We might need to move towards God, pursue his presence. The Israelites had already experienced the incredible supernatural power of God back in Egypt, hadn't they, with all the plagues and things like that. And these sorts of powerful moments are real faith builders for us. But so often the most beautiful, treasured moments are found when we're just seeking the presence of God. Sometimes that's quite simple, just humbling ourselves and surrendering ourselves and saying, God, less of me, more of you. Be still so that we can seek the presence of God and move on to whatever is next. And then what about the people at the front of the crowd, lastly? Those marching out boldly by the side of Moses with the pillar of cloud right in front of them. They're moving on. They're where the action's at. They're leading the way. They're in close proximity to the presence of God. They're excited to tell others about everything that they've seen God do, what he's been doing, the rescue, how he too can change their lives. I wonder if you recognize yourself in that description of the people at the front. And if that's you, brilliant, go for it. Yet even when we're out the front, there can be hindrances, things that can just trip us up that we're not aware of. The story of Mary and Martha in Luke chapter 10 is there as a great reminder that there are times when those of us who have an activist tendency, I'm one of them, who are out the front, who want to be where the action is, perhaps serving all over the place and getting involved all over the place, we too can get weighed down. We too can find ourselves stuck. We can get distracted by the lists of things that need to be done and can end up leading and serving as Christians from a place of duty, or worse, a place of resentment, rather than serving and sharing our love for God from a place of having been in the presence of God. So for those out the front, the word is still the same. Be still Be still so that you can know that I am God. For those of us who might have a tendency to be out the front, being still for you and for me might look like trusting God enough that you realize that you can't add to your salvation, the salvation that God has already won for us by doing stuff or by being good. God has done it. He has won the battle through the cross of Jesus Christ. And so maybe for some of us out the front, we need to stop rushing and be still enough to live in the freedom that Christ Jesus has won for us. And then we get to the final few verses of our reading today. And they cause us to look forward to the rescue that is available to each one of us in Jesus. Look at verses 21 and 22 there. The waters divided, and the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground. And there was a wall of water on their right and a wall of water on their left. And the Israelites all crossed over from death to life. I'm going to say that again. The Israelites all crossed over from death to life. Some of them, I imagine the people at the front and in the middle, will have walked through amazed at these walls of water either side. They'll have probably been going, oh my goodness, look at this. God is with us. He's fighting for us. This is amazing. I reckon the people at the back were probably starting to think, this water's going to come down soon. Tens of thousands of people have already been here. Oh my goodness, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. At different times of life and faith, we all might feel like we're at the front or the middle or the back. And we, like the Israelites, need to hear these words. The Lord will fight for you. Be still. Move on. But remember that when they came to the Red Sea, all the Israelites crossed over. Those at the front, those at the middle, and those at the back. Their faith in God was varied. The struggles that they faced were different. Their experience of the presence of God was different. But ultimately, they were all equally saved by the living, saving God. Why? Because they and we were not saved by their position in the crowd, or because of anything they could do or somebody else could do for them. But they were saved because of who God is, a God who loves them and saves them, and what he has done for them. You and I are saved through the blood of Jesus. God has done it because of who he is, not because of anything we can do. And this God is still fighting for you. This God says, be still. And this God says to each one of us, wherever we are in that crowd, come on, move on with me.
Thanks for listening. We hope you found that encouraging. Have a great week and see you soon.